am so excited to bring you this recipe for a quick, almost cheater version of al pastor on your griddle, in your backyard, crispy edges, caramelized pineapple, the works, and it cooks in under 10 minutes. Let's do it. Step one for making our al pastor is throwing together our marinade. Now this is the exact same marinade that I use in my smoked al pastor. I have a full video for that if you want to try the smoked version, but since we're doing a quick version today, it's a little bit different in terms of the process, but the marinade itself remains exactly the same. Here's how you make it.
In a medium saucepan over medium heat, melt down some butter, add in some diced onions and 4 cloves of garlic. Let those come up to temperature, the onions turn translucent, then we add in chicken stock and our chilies. I like to use dried ancho chilies and chipotle chilies from the can in the adobo sauce. To that, I also add about 1.5 tablespoons of achiote paste. This is gonna add beautiful color and flavor. The rest of our ingredients go in with some cumin, some Mexican oregano, some kosher salt, some sugar, and some white vinegar. Let that simmer over low heat for about 4 to 5 more minutes until those peppers are nice and plump.
All right, our marinade has come together and it smells so ridiculous in the studio right now. What we gotta do is blend it so that we have a really nice, smooth kind of paste of a marinade that'll coat every piece of our pork. But before we do that, we gotta pull the stems off of our peppers just really carefully. Since they've been rehydrated, they should just pop out super easily. And once you get the stems out, it's into the blender and process. Make sure you put the lid on until it's nice and smooth. All right, that looks good to me. I'm gonna take the lid off and set it aside and kind of just let it cool for just a little bit while we work on our pork. Now we're starting with a bone-in pork shoulder. This marinade will cover about 4 pounds. This pork shoulder is about 7, so I'm gonna cut it in half, use half for the al pastor, save the other half for some pulled pork I'm gonna do later. Now if you wanna make this even a little bit easier, you could actually buy ground pork or have your butcher grind it for you. Just have them do a really coarse grind on it, and that'll even save you the chopping step. But I kind of like the texture I get from hand chopping versus ground, but it will save you a little bit of time and effort. Pork shoulder is quite tough, which is usually why you see it reserved for like smoked pulled pork, low and slow cooking, but it has a really great amount of fat and my favorite flavor of any of the pork cuts. So that's what we're using for our al pastor, and we can totally make it tender and delicious on the griddle in less time, but our knife's gonna do a lot of that work for us. And by cutting them into small pieces, chopping them up into smaller chunks, we'll have that perfect, slightly chewy, crispy edge texture without it being tough. Now, if you were doing my traditional al pastor, this is where you would stop with these nice thin strips of pork shoulder. They'd go right into the marinade. But this is the quick version, so we're gonna chop these into smaller pieces, cut them as many times as you want. A good butcher knife is fun. Oh.
Great.
If you're gonna really go ham on this pork, might I recommend a wood cutting board, because I was just really feeling it and I shattered my plastic one. RIP cutting board. It's a goner. What happened? Nothing. Okay, feel good about this. A couple of passes through our pork shoulder, and I'm really happy with this consistency. We've got small pieces, but they're not as fine as you would see in a ground pork. So we'll have a nice little bit of texture, but they'll break apart on the griddle and we'll get crispy edges everywhere. With our pork in a bowl, we're gonna add in our al pastor marinade. Now, this is not a very wet marinade. It's actually pretty thick. It's almost like a paste, which is perfect because we don't want a lot of moisture on the flat top because then it won't crisp up and caramelize. But we do want every piece of this pork to have flavor all over it and have it be evenly distributed. So we're gonna get the paste in there and then we gotta massage. Dude, that color is amazing. That comes from the annatto seeds in the achiote paste. and the flavor is fantastic as well. Now, with my traditional al pastor, I recommend you marinate for 4 hours up to 24 hours so you can prep this a day in advance. Because this is chopped and it's so fine, if you really were in a hurry, you could technically go immediately to the flat top here and it would turn out fabulous. But if you have time to marinate, cover this, stick it in the fridge, and again, let it have a good, like, at least an hour, but you could go up to 24 hours. Now, traditionally, al pastor is served with some pineapple that's cooked on the spit with the al pastor. We're doing this a little bit different, but we have to have the pineapple represented because honestly, it's my favorite part. So I'm gonna cut my pineapple into kind of long strips, and then I will use my griddle spatula to kind of break them down into smaller pieces. I wanna cook them separately from the meat itself so that that has its own crispy thing going on, the pineapple has its own crispy thing going on, and then people can choose their own adventure, because if you're not a pineapple person, maybe you don't want it all mixed in. So we'll do the pineapple on the side almost as like a topping to the taco. Al pastor is off the griddle. We're ready to assemble tacos. I think total cook time out there was maybe 7 minutes. It does take a little bit in the prep department, but the fact that it cooks so fast really makes this a quick version of al pastor. Plus, I'm dying over the amount of crispy, crunchy edges that I'm seeing on this pork. It looks so good. I'll go with a little bit of pork. I love pineapple, so definitely getting some pineapple on my taco. And then you can use your favorite toppings. I've got some red onions, but you can do white onions for more traditional. A little bit of fresh cilantro, a squeeze of lime, and this warm tortilla. Actively salivating. I cannot wait. Oh gosh. The texture on that pork is absolutely perfect. It's crispy on the outside, tender on the inside with just this right amount of bounce to it. The flavor from the marinade is a classic. It's over the top flavor with the peppers, little hint of vinegar, a little hint of sugar, which contributes to that caramelization on the pork. The griddled pineapple on top creates a little bit of sweetness and acidity. This is everything that an al pastor taco needs to be in a little bit shorter of a time span. Maybe not totally traditional, but I think this makes a lot of sense for a weeknight cook, where typically my old school al pastor, I save that one for the weekends because it's a little bit longer of a cook. Make sure you give this recipe a try at home. When you do, snap a photo and tag me on social media so I can cheer you on your journey to becoming a backyard barbecue hero. See you next time.